The surveillance state in America does not look like one giant government camera watching everybody from a control room. That is the old version. That is the version people imagine because it is easy to understand, and because it makes the problem feel distant. One agency, one system, one switch somebody had to flip. But that is not really how this is being built. The version we are getting is quieter than that. It is a flock camera on a street pole, a Ring doorbell on a porch, a phone app selling location data through a broker you have never heard of, a police department buying software from a private company, a border agency testing AI surveillance towers in the desert, and a retailer putting license plate readers in a parking lot. A city adding more smart infrastructure and calling it public safety, and every piece gets justified separately, which is why the whole thing is so easy to miss. A license plate camera is not sold as a surveillance network, it is sold as a way to find stolen cars. A Ring doorbell is not sold as a police camera, it is sold as a way to stop package theft. AI border towers are not sold as domestic surveillance infrastructure, they are sold as border security. Phone location data is not sold as a tracking system, it is sold as advertising, analytics, convenience, or app functionality. And individually, some of those arguments can make sense. Crime is real, stolen cars are real, package theft is real, missing people are real, and the border is real. Nobody has to pretend these tools have no use. But useful is not the same thing as harmless. That is the part people keep skipping. A tool can solve a crime and still help build a system that is much bigger than the crime it solved. A camera can be helpful in one investigation and still become part of an infrastructure that tracks ordinary life by default. Take Flock Safety. Flock's license plate readers are now one of the clearest examples of how this works, because they do not need to know who you are by name at first. They just need to know where your car was, when it was there, and what it looked like. That sounds narrow until you think about what a car actually reveals. It can show where you sleep, where you work, where you worship, who you visit, what doctor's office you go to, what meetings you attend, what neighborhoods you pass through, and what routine you follow without ever needing to unlock your phone or read your messages. And again, one camera on one road is not the point. The point is the network. Flock cameras are installed by police departments, neighborhoods, homeowners associations, businesses, and private property owners. Then the data can become searchable. A plate can be searched. A vehicle description can be searched. A location can be searched. A time window can be searched. So the government does not always need to follow your car anymore. The road can remember you. That is a different kind of power because it turns normal movement into a database. You are not being stopped. You are not being questioned. You may not even know the scan happened. But later, if somebody with access wants to reconstruct where a vehicle has been, the infrastructure is already there. And that is where the sales pitch starts to matter less than the access rules. Who can search it? How long does the data stay? Can other agencies see it? Can federal agencies access it? Can it be used for immigration enforcement? Can it be used around protests? Can it be used to track someone for personal reasons? Because once a searchable movement database exists, the problem is not only the official purpose, the problem is every future purpose somebody discovers after the system is already installed. Ring cameras are another example, and this one is even stranger because the government did not have to build the camera network, people bought it themselves. Amazon's Ring became the symbol of the doorbell camera era because it turned private homes into a neighborhood recording grid. People installed these cameras for normal reasons. They wanted to see who was at the door, they wanted footage if someone stole a package, they wanted evidence if someone broke into their car. That is understandable. But once enough homes have cameras, the neighborhood changes. The porch records the sidewalk, the driveway records the street, and the apartment hallway records movement. The camera that was bought for one front door starts capturing public life around it. And for years, Ring's Neighbors app and law enforcement tools made that especially important, because police could request footage from users through Ring's ecosystem. Amazon later changed that policy and ended the old direct request for assistance tool, which matters. That is a real change. But it does not make the broader issue disappear, because Ring still sits in the middle of a huge private camera network. Police can still use warrants, emergency exceptions can still exist, And even after Amazon ended the old direct police request tool, the broader model did not disappear. Ring later explored integrations with policing tech companies like Flock and Axon, showing that the basic idea is still alive. Private camera networks can be routed into public safety systems when the platform, the user, or the legal process allows it. So, no, it is not as simple as saying every Ring camera is automatically a police camera. That would be sloppy. The more accurate point is worse. Ring helped normalize the idea that privately owned cameras can become part of the public safety pipeline when the right request, platform, emergency, or warrant appears. That is the shift. The camera is private when it is sold to you. It becomes part of the larger system when someone else wants the footage. And that is how the surveillance state gets built without looking like one. It does not always need the government to install the camera. Sometimes Amazon sells it to you, you put it on your porch, the company hosts the footage, and the legal system figures out access afterward. Then you have phones. This is the part people understand in theory, but usually ignore in practice because the device is too useful to think about honestly. Your phone knows where you go. Your apps ask for location permission, your searches reveal intent, your maps reveal routine, your purchases reveal habits, your photos contain metadata. Your phone scanning for nearby Bluetooth beacons and Wi-Fi networks can be tracked to pinpoint your location down to a specific store aisle. Your movement can be turned into advertising data, analytics data, or brokered location data. And a lot of that does not begin as a police file. It begins as business. Companies collect it because it is profitable. Data brokers package it because somebody will buy it. Advertisers use it because it helps target people. Apps collect it because permissions are easier to ask for than restraint. But data does not stay harmless just because it started as marketing. Companies like Gravy Analytics, Vintel, Kochava, and Mobile Walla become part of the national privacy debate because the data broker world can turn phone movement into a product. And once location data exists outside your phone, the question changes from did you consent to an app to who else can get access to the trial. That is the ugly part. A lot of surveillance does not require a secret agent, it requires a purchase order. If the government cannot always collect something directly, it may be able to buy it, request it, subpoena it, or get it from a company that collected it first for a completely different reason. That is not science fiction. That is the business model of data. Then there is facial recognition. Clearview AI is the obvious name here because it built a facial recognition system by scraping billions of images from the internet and offering search tools to law enforcement and government agencies. Think about what that means. For most of human history, being seen in public was temporary. Someone could notice you, maybe remember you, maybe describe you later. But facial recognition changes the nature of being seen. A face becomes searchable. A photo becomes the lead. An image from the internet becomes part of an identification system. And once again, the sales pitch is familiar. Find criminals, identify suspects, help investigations, solve cases faster. Sometimes that may be true. But the concern is not whether facial recognition can ever help solve a case. The concern is what happens when the default assumption becomes that faces in public, online, in security cameras, and in old photos can all become searchable identity markers. That is the theme running through all of this. License plates become searchable, faces become searchable, locations become searchable, doorbell footage becomes searchable, movement patterns become searchable. And once those pieces exist, the next layer is integration. That is where companies like Palantir, Axon, Fusus, and other government software vendors matter. They are not always the camera on the pole or the doorbell on the porch. They are closer to the back end, where separate data streams can be pulled together, searched, analyzed, and turned into decisions. Flock can help make vehicles searchable. Ring can help make neighborhood footage available. Clearview can help make faces searchable. Data brokers can help make location trails available, but the larger surveillance state becomes much more powerful when those pieces stop living in separate boxes. That is the real danger of the platform layer. It is one thing for a police department to have a camera. It is another thing for a department to have software that can combine camera feeds, license plate scans, locations, identities, case files, and outside databases into one searchable system. That is when surveillance stops being collection. It becomes coordination. Then you add AI. That is where this starts moving from surveillance as recording to surveillance as interpretation. A camera records what happened. AI tries to decide what matters. That is a major difference. Because when a human watches footage, there is at least a person making a judgment in the moment. With AI driven systems, the machine can scan constantly, flag movement, classify objects, identify patterns, and push alerts before a human ever decides what they are looking at. That is why the AI surveillance tower funding in the Secure America Act matters. The bill does not just talk about more border agents, it targets billions toward integrated AI driven autonomous surveillance towers. That is not just a better camera, that is a model for automated enforcement. The tower watches, the software scans, the system detects movement, it flags activity, it reduces the need for a human being to watch every camera in real time. Supporters will call that modern border security. More coverage, faster alerts, fewer blind spots, better use of personnel across remote areas. And from an enforcement perspective, that logic makes sense. But that is exactly why it should worry people. The border is often where government power gets tested first. The argument is easier there. The fear is stronger there. The legal environment is different there. The public is more willing to accept tools that sound extreme if they are pointed outward. But technology does not stay in the place where it was first justified. If AI can detect suspicious movement at the border, why not around federal buildings? Airports, train stations, city centers, schools, retail parking lots? Why not anywhere officials can say the word safety? That is how these systems expand. The hardest case justifies the tool. The tool becomes normal. The price comes down. The vendor sells it somewhere else. Then the public debate shifts from whether we should build it to whether we can live without it. And while that is happening, companies like Axon, Flock, Ring, Clearview, Palantir, and dozens of smaller data firms are not just selling cameras, they are selling an ecosystem. Cameras are the front end. Databases are the memory. AI is the sorting system. Software platforms are the search bar. And police departments, federal agencies, private companies, and local governments are the customers. That is why the nothing to hide argument is so useless. The issue is not whether you personally are committing a crime right now. The issue is whether a free society should normalize a world where ordinary life can be reconstructed after the fact because cameras, companies, and databases were quietly collecting everything in the background. You may trust the current mayor, police chief, president, or use case, but surveillance infrastructure outlives the people who promise to use it responsibly. That is the problem with these systems. They do not reset when politics change. They do not forget when leadership changes. They do not vanish when the emergency ends. They remain. And the next person with access does not have to build the network, they only have to search it. That is the real shift. The surveillance state does not need every American watched by one government agency in real time. It only needs enough cameras, enough databases, enough AI, enough private partnerships, and enough legal loopholes that your daily life can be reconstructed whenever someone decides to look. And the most disturbing part is how normal it feels. A flock camera on a pole, a ring camera on a porch, a phone in your pocket, a license plate reader in a parking lot, a facial recognition database, an AI tower at the border, a police software platform behind a login. Each piece feels small. Each piece has a reason. Each piece has a use case. Each piece has a press release about safety, efficiency, or convenience. But together, they create something much larger than public safety. They create a country where being watched is routine, being tracked is passive, and being searched is just a matter of access. We are not only being watched more, we are being made searchable.